Now, a tourist attraction in South Australia has been luring in thousands of visitors, despite making them feel a little queasy.
I wasn't sure which of us was starting then, Ray. You took the lead, thank you. Have a look at this. So, the endangered Titan arum, or corpse plant, as it's otherwise known. A funny name for one that's beginning to bloom again. It's just bloomed for the first time in years in Adelaide. It looks incredible, doesn't it? But apparently
It smells disgusting.
the smell has been compared to that of dead rats. I wouldn't know what dead rats smell like, but I imagine it's not pleasant. Not one then to add to your collection of house plants.
There is a reason it's called a corpse plant, isn't there?
Okay.
Well, I think the dead rats is it, but yeah, I think they are. They do have kind of curious behaviours, corpse plants, and I can't remember what they are. I will find out if this story comes up again in the next.
To do with how they rot, or just
programme.
to do with the smell?
I think everything. I think that, like, when you look inside them, they're pretty disgusting anyway. So here's the thing about the corpse plant, right? I knew there was something about it. So it stinks like rotting flesh, hence its name. But it only blooms every 7 to 9 years. So it's a very unique event when it opens up, and it only opens up for about sort of 24 to 36 hours, which is why
it returns
it's
to being a corpse.
so many people at the moment.
And well, it looks lovely.
Stinky petals.
No smell-o-vision this morning, though.
No, thank you.
Now to a tourist attraction that's been luring in thousands of visitors in Adelaide in Australia, despite making those that see it feel a little queasy. The endangered Titan arum, or corpse plant, has just bloomed for the first time in years, but has a smell that's been likened to dead rats. It sounds lovely, doesn't it? Matt Coulter is a horticulture curator at the Adelaide Botanic Gardens and told me more about how popular the plant's become.
We've had cases where people have been lining up for 2.5 hours to actually come and see it and to smell it. Yeah, it's quite an amazing plant, but yeah, it's quite interesting that people actually want to come and smell something that's quite vile.
So how strong is this smell, and from how far away can you smell it?
So basically, it only smells for 2 days, and the first night that it starts to open is when it's at its strongest. And the interesting thing about the smell, it actually pulses. So it's not just the smell around the flower, it actually pushes it away from the flower as far as possible. So as people were lining up to come down to see the flower, they could smell it when they were probably 100 metres away. You can actually smell it outside our conservatory probably more than you could inside. So it's quite remarkable actually how it pushes away from the flower.
Yes, we're seeing some brilliant pictures of the flower there and the queues of people going past it. What is the purpose of its odour?
So it's all about pollination. So this plant took us 10 years to bring into flower, and it actually has one night that it can get pollinated. So in the wild, the flower can't pollinate itself, so it needs to engage an insect to actually bring the pollen to it. So an insect might be in a 2-day-old flower, get covered in pollen, and then it thinks it's going to lay its eggs on a rotting bit of meat. So it actually brings the pollen to it, and then as it's going through the flower looking at somewhere to lay its eggs, it actually deposits the pollen. So it actually only has that one night that actually can get pollinated. And if it doesn't get pollinated that night, it could be another 3 to 5 years' time.
So it's not native to Australia, but is it now growing in Australia?
Yeah, so it's only native to Sumatra. It's the only place in the world that it occurs naturally, and we've conserved it in our collections here. And back in 2006, we received 3 seeds, which we then germinated. And from those 3 seeds, we've actually been able to flower at 11 times. But the exciting thing about this last flowering for us is actually in 2013, we set up a propagation trial to see whether we could propagate it by leaf cuttings. This is the very first one that we have actually propagated that we started 10 years ago. So
if you can propagate it by leaf cuttings, therefore amateur gardeners could maybe grow one in their back garden?
Yes, so it's not an easy plant to cultivate. It needs to have that real tropical environment. So even here in South Australia, we wouldn't be able to grow them outdoors. So we grow them in a climate-controlled glasshouse.
So it's still
constant temperature through the year. So yeah, if someone in England actually had a conservatory, that it is possible to grow one for sure.